Hello, everyone, and welcome to another lifting episode. This episode was recorded on 8/27/23. We're going to play for you some clips that we did with Ghost Box clips, everything at Yorktown, and a little bit outside of Jamestown. We're going to touch on that more later, and going to some of these haunted sites and historic sites, energy reports therein. But before we do that, I do have to open this circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas. And Joanna, you can do the affirmation and blessing, and then we can move forward.
Sure. We are all one. And when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends and family, to let the healing energies in. Let them love you and nourish you and bring you to your highest good. We pray for ourselves, our friends, our family, our loved ones, to let the healing energies in. Let them love you and nourish you and bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence with no conflicting agenda. Please join us now, be it past family members, be it friends, relatives, galactics, be it people that were actually involved in some of these historic areas at the time of past history to us now. So we invite all of that in with no conflicting agendas to open up a conversation of the things we know and maybe some things that we don't know. We also ask for benevolence and those with no conflicting agenda to please sweep out, to please remove those things and those barriers that may wish us not to have conversation and that would want to interfere. History oftentimes is written by the victors. However, today we just want to have an open conversation of the potential of more information regarding these areas. So with that, with the blessings we send forward to you, if you agree with this, please just say so by saying so be it.
And so be it. So this is actually quite interesting. I'll start this off by stating we did go back to these historic sites, like you saw the video we did years ago on Jamestown and the Agents of Montauk conversation. And you also saw when we went to Gettysburg, you saw when we went to Boston, you saw when we went to Salem. We're trying to resurrect that particular pattern again, going to some of these places. We're starting off with places we've been. We may even revisit Roanoke as well. So this to go back to these, with a little bit more historic information. I went in there flying a little more blind before in these places. I'm not doing that this time.
And we'll do it kind of in the lifting format. So what we want to do is go there, go visit these places, and then come back, probably in a better safety place to open up for channelings and to have different conversations.
Like here. Yeah.
Like here, and to have a better understanding and maybe potentially learn some things or open up some ideas that weren't in the history books and that people may find interesting within, again, understanding the world around us maybe a little bit better and get some perspective from those who were either there or representatives that, again, Chris feels comfortable with that can talk about some of those time periods and some of the maybe more interesting things that were going on. So we hope you enjoy, us going around and doing that. But again, it'll be done differently, probably, again, in a way that we consider more safe for Chris. And then allows for that broader conversation. So we hope you find a lot of this pretty interesting.
Yeah, I was a little bit more reckless at that time, and I didn't realize how much havoc it wreaked on my energy field, and my physical body. So if anybody has any ideas of doing this kind of willy-nilly, I would advise against it. That's like with the paranormal research. You got to have protections in place. You got to do all the procedures we've talked about in that field. You have to apply a similar set of restrictions on the channeling field, and also doing this kind of research going into these particular sites. Yes, I like some of the styles just like everybody else. I like the field does just like everybody else. I love going into the field. But at the same time, you have to take the proper precautions. And we've done a copious amount of videos on certain proper precautions too, and we'll continue to do so.
So I wanted to just say, just to have people have an understanding of geography, that when you look at the three areas, Jamestown, Yorktown, and Williamsburg, it's almost thought of as a little triangle area of places in Virginia, where many people will come, they will vacation, and they'll check out all three of those places while they're, here now. So you didn't see a whole lot of, just a little clip of historic Williamsburg, I think, in this clip. It's a great place to go because there is a lot of homes in a specific area in Williamsburg to see and to walk amongst and to see how things were going if you like things like that. Yorktown, of course, the ending of the Revolutionary War, it was occurring in that area. Large battles that were supported by multiple contributors, including, of course, the French, even maybe some Canadians and different things, where kind of was that siege where George Washington and them were here doing that area. And then, of course, prior to even that, the area known as Jamestown and the settlements therein. So Jamestown is, because they're doing a lot of archaeology now to really try to figure out where all of that was. They're realizing maybe some of it may be within now what's now flowing water. But we'll tackle Jamestown completely separately of this triangle of areas, I think, because it really is, when you see the old clicks, kind of a complex story. And again, even at that time, questions like, was there a power struggle of which way of thinking was going to go on to go down into society, and what is talked about in history and what is not necessarily talked about in history? So Jamestown will cover, I think, completely separately. So today it's mainly going to focus, I think, a lot on Yorktown.
Yorktown and Williamsburg, and the clips that we're about to play, you will see the ghost box stuff in there. As of this date of this recording, have not gone through those. It'll be a surprise to you and me at basically the same time. So there's you'll see in those some shenanigans, of course, from our usual crowd in there. Of course, I sometimes have to limit the questioning on it, or that's their way basically saying, be more precise in the questioning. So, or else they'll goof off. Like if you have a camera running or a reporter has a camera running, you're going to see some douchebag in the background going in the background. So it's like that. It's the same thing.
Be aware, the warning with all of that is that we know for a fact now, because using a ghost box, and we've talked about this before, using a ghost box and opening that up can potentially really contaminate your equipment in a way that you have to
discard it every quarter or so. Yeah.
So we say that, but we just want people to know that, believe it or not, as we do these things, we're not using the same ghost box all the time, because we're having to potentially get rid of ones.
Yeah, you can't keep it till it breaks, folks. I know, as a paranormal investigator, you want to hang on to these things as much as possible. You're bringing those energies from all those haunted sites, and it becomes a culmination or an apex or a miniature causeway or portal after a while. And then you're going to wonder why you have crap going on in your house. So you have to be very careful with this, especially the ghost box. Pendulums do the same, and tarot cards will do it if you don't open and close the circles properly. You heard us talking about that quite a bit. But the ghost box especially, please be careful with this. It's not a toy. Do not do it in your house. Do it in the site that you are going to. Do it far from your house. I know if you're trying to investigate something in your own home, it can be very tempting, a very roping pull to try to always do it in your home. I fell for this too, folks. It's called EVP addiction, and it is a real type of thing in the paranormal circles that goes around, where people just can't stop doing it. Like any addictive quality, like even if I wouldn't say like an alcoholic or anything like that, it just becomes an addicted, habitual type of thing where you just can't stop. And you like, especially if you have a relative die or something like that, or somebody die, a child or a parent die, people tend to get hooked on it doing that because they're trying to reach the person desperately, because seeing them or hearing them, but they figure they'd use the devices that go between, and you have mischievous entities and demons and stuff that like to screw with you through that, and dimensional beings and military and AI and all that other garbage and aliens. So with that, I will play the clip for you now, and clips for you now, and then we'll come back after that.
Okay, we are in Colonial Williamsburg, and we're in a local graveyard here. Joanna, what chapel is this, or what church is this? Oh, we're here in Colonial Williamsburg, and
it's an Episcopal church.
Episcopal church. Energy is fairly heavy. I did put a little pound bag of shungite here, or what was left of one. So, and I hit a tower buster in town too. I'm not saying where it is or photographing it. I want it to remain. So, I'm going to do this today, and I will ask a couple of questions before I turn this on. So, what benevolence lurks in these graveyards? What benevolent aliens still exist here? And report on any soul trapping that's going on. Benevolent elementals, remembering not to follow us home. And what benevolent beings are usually around us, like Elena, Vess, and Isaac, if they have any comments, like usual. So, here we go.
S-Box. Scanning. SM.
What was that? There are 3 or 4 of you. Who's speaking, please? Any of the names on any of the graves of any of the people speaking? Final thoughts, please. You can move on at any time. There are ghosts here.
Bruton Parish.
Bruton Parish is what this is called. Thank you. Any final thoughts again, please? Thank you. Thank you. I'll see if there's any other places I can do this, but this is closing the circle for this particular ghost box session at this time. Thank you very much. It is 1:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday, August 5th, 2023. Thank you. Yeah, this is that Bruton Parish I told you about, and we couldn't get in here before when we were here years ago. We could this time. So this is historic Williamsburg in here. More
Behind us, if you turn around down that long street on either side,
and
then up here are more shops.
yeah, I will say the energy here is a little tight, but it's a little better. You could say this is an energy report for historic Williamsburg. So putting that shungite helped. There's a tower buster, like I said, not saying where it is. So all right, closing circle for this video at this time. Thank you.
We're losing half our group. Remember.
All right, this particular house is incredibly heavy. Don't know why, heavier than the graveyard. So this is the cemetery over here. And so I'm wondering why that's so heavy. Maybe I could pull up the ghost box here and do that. Okay, this is the house. So we're gonna do ghost box session. Wait for loud people to pass. But the question is, why is this so heavy?
You know why? Because we're lucky we live in modern times and
Okay, that was funny. The question is, why is this so energetically heavy versus that of the church, which you would think would be worse? So,
S-Box. Scanning FM.
any final words? Any ghosts present? Benevolence, true benevolence only, and don't follow us home either. Thank you. All right. Closing circle for this ghost box session as of right now. It is 2:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday, August 5th, 2023. Thank you. Okay, we didn't spend a whole lot of time in old Williamsburg here, but it's more of an energy report anyway. That house that I showed you is actually heavier than hell. Probably the heaviest spot in the entire little town there, and more so than the cemetery / graveyard. So actually a graveyard is one attached to the church, so graveyard. So that's the difference. But this it fluctuated from area to area. I was able to take my hat off after a while. I was expecting a haunted area to actually be full of ghosts. Surprisingly, even dropping the shungite powder Did it stir up energies? Yes, and I did hear, I think, and I have not reviewed it yet at the time you're seeing this recording, I think at that old house, somebody was saying, thank you for me putting that shungite powder down, and the tower buster I hid in town, again, not saying where it is, could be anywhere. I want it to remain there, so it actually started stirring some things up here. I'm also declaring, as of this moment in time, nothing that is not for our highest good does not follow us home, or does not follow us home at this time. All right, it is River Hill. So, yeah, this is our energy report to this. Joanna, you want to say anything?
No, I think you've done everything.
Okay. Yeah, this is we finally had one of these outings in a long time. So, versus what we did in Mississippi. So, it is 2:42 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday, August 5th. 2023. Thank you. All right, we are here at historic Yorktown, right in this area right here, where it says First Allied Siege Line. This is the best place we could stop for doing a ghost box. I would have wanted to try it at the Visitors Center, but they might object to that. A little loud. There's some areas in there that would have probably worked with all the signage and stuff they had in there. But before I start any ghost box session, this is more generalized. I suppose this applies to Valley Forge as well. But this is who really aided the United States forming, aside from any human factions. Like French, you know, you get it, like the natives, anybody like that. You have anything?
No, I think that's a great question.
Okay. This was the site of the last battle of the Revolution, by the way, the defeat of the British. So here we go.
S-Box. Scanning. SM.
I'm hot. And as the country over me. History. So you know
And were the gardeners present?
you know, rock. They hurt.
Any final words from any of our allies? All right. Thank you. And we'll be doing this again in another part of the site. I'm closing this circle for this particular ghost box session at 2:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. Okay, here at Yorktown Battlefield, we're taking the driving tour. We're not going to do the ghost box at every stop, but what we're doing is doing our usual energy reports. We haven't done this in years. By now, you've seen the The other one we did from Williamsburg. And we're doing the little historical jumping like we used to do back in the day, in the very beginning, going back to the lifting's roots with this, kind of rewinding the clock back and going back. But the energy report of here is not as bad as it was when we originally came into the area. If people remember back then when I gave the report on the lifting and GIC respectively, we called the area between Washington D.C. Virginia Beach and Washington D.C. we called the battlefield areas Harvester Alley, because the ghosts in the area, I saw them jumping into the vehicles, jumping into people, and from their perspective they were jumping into a house away from lights on the battlefield. And that, it turned out to be an actual myth, folks. That turned out to be an actual historical tale or fact that was out there about the lights on the battlefield. Those would be the harvester spheres soaking up the loosh. So if people want to know that, or soul trapping or soul trading. So this the energy here isn't as bad as we originally were, but I am getting heart pains while we've been out here. It's been rather creepy, actually. It's not just my phone doing it. Sometimes the radiation from the electronics will do it, being so close. We've had a couple phones in proximity here on the left side. But it's been a bit of an energy drain being out here. I was experiencing that a little beforehand as we got closer. But other than that, it's not like in the toilet heavy. So you would think more of a battlefield, but being more in the toilet. But obviously something energetically earthwise has changed since we were here in this area before. So I'll leave that here. Also been seeing some weird stuff in the trees, like some of the fae I've heard say thank you to me, but I've seen some weird little apparitions by some of the trees and some of the brick and work and stuff like that. That's probably ghosts, and that's more likely what's making my heart hurt a little bit. Probably somebody that got shot there, died that way. It's more likely a bit of empathic transference. I generally don't open up in a place like this. I learned my lesson with Gettysburg, and Boston and Salem, so not going to do it. I'll check it out later when I'm in the safety of our house. So it is 2:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. Okay, everybody, we're at Yorktown National Cemetery. We walked in here a moment ago, wondering what this was, because these graves are really flat here. Nebraska has that too. In some areas, like at Wyuka, they have these flat ones all over the place, and some of the older cemeteries as well. The further back you get those tall ones like over there. So here we are. And you notice there's a house, but it's not really a church. That's the difference between a graveyard and a cemetery. Graveyard, you got it right off a abbey or church. But cemetery is independent. So people interchange that too much. But I'm going to do a ghost box session here. If there is a place, I'll leave a salt puck. I don't have some shungite nuggets somewhere, but I don't really see a place to do the puck anywhere. Don't have any tower busters this time around, so but we do have something. So I will do the ghost box session. But Joanne, you got any questions for this place?
Not really. I just hope, I would like to think that it's peaceful for them. I don't know, but I hope so.
Okay.
That's about it, really.
Okay.
S-Box. Scanning. SM.
What does the perspective look for you here as a ghost?
For your home. Virginia, how do you do? I almost. Have a 4-hour stake of charge. Years ago? Extra Melody 20.
Who's the unknown soldiers? Why are there coins on all the gravestones?
Find you what?
Any final words from our allies? All right, thank you. I do believe the coin thing can be answers. That's ancient. I see that in a lot of graveyards. They also, in ancient times, used to put the coins on the eyes too, as respect. Some left coins and baubles at graves, like ancient tombs have things in them, like where the pharaohs are in Egypt. All that stuff. Yeah.
A lot of unknown treasures.
Yeah, a lot of them are unknowns. Probably because they were unrecognizable after they were mutilated from the ammunition. So, they of course they had no forensics then. So.
If anyone's here like that, we acknowledge you, and you can go on peacefully.
You go on peacefully. I do ask though from any of these sites that none of the ghosts follow us back to the house. Anybody listening, of our fan group, I'm usually not too forgiving with ghosts in the house because they tend to take me by surprise. And they tend to drain you a little bit. No disrespect, but it does get old. So I do ask that the ghosts that may be here, and I know you're here, please do not follow us home. Please move on to the spirit world, and do not go with any beings or any beings at all. Go to the right of the light, not to the light itself. No soul trap. All right, I'm ending this here. I'm closing this circle for this ghost box session as of this moment in time. It's 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. Okay, here's an interesting place, right in the middle of the woods here, right by Yorktown. And Joanna told me, remember what I said on the previous recording about seeing like tree fae and such? She said when we were in a little historic Yorktown, I'll talk to the speaker, sorry. I can't flip it without it screwing up. So, she said she saw two women there that were reading a sign. I thought she was going to say she saw an alien like she did in Salem when I wasn't paying attention. Another point, I wasn't paying attention. But obviously somebody mind whammied me because she saw a forest person phase in and out. So, on the way through here, thick, dense forest, I had a scenario pop in my head of I was taking place of a forest person. I felt myself get big, like they wanted to communicate, and we just stopped here, where I just saw approaching like a young girl or something like that, and putting his hand on her heart and her head, and then greeting her, and then knowing that there were militias in the area hunting them. And I heard in my head they hunted us. I saw it was like a group that you wouldn't be historical, like in the show Outlander. They had the regulators in that wasn't like a historical thing, but yet they see them in the past, or it was a temporal alteration or something like that. I hate using the show as an example, but temporal Cold War example. But in this particular way, this was more like Catholic Christian type people that saw the hairy men as demons, kind of like Leif Erikson and Eric the Red saw them as the hairy demons, or the people in or forest demons, and people in West Virginia call them wood boogers. Booger means demon. That's when they say God bless you, boogers coming out, demons coming out. That's why they say that. That's where they come in contact with forest people mythology. I hate the comparison with booger and forest person. I absolutely abhor that. But anyhow, I'm going to use the ghost box in here as I go a little further, see where the trees bend. I know this is a natural bend, but this reminds me a lot of the environment that they would be in, and I know where I'm surrounded by them out here. I'm not going to go any further into whatever territory they have here. But before I start the ghost box, I will say, or ask rather, what forest people do we have trying to communicate with us out here? You can use the ghost box. I won't do it for very long in your territory, I promise. I'll even leave some shungite behind for you, but be thanked, yes. So I've been putting blessings all along here. So up further up the path there. So I will turn this on very briefly.
Xbox.
Couple minutes. All right.
Scanning. FM.
It feels more like a sanctuary in here with the trees. All right. In my head, you called yourself Vorkak. Is that accurate? In my head, I heard not long, meaning this off soon, yes? All right, I will respect. I heard in my head. I don't know if that appeared on the ghost box, so I thank you. Any final words before I shut it off? From our allies. Oh, thank you. Yes, you know, it's just like a kind action was mistaken for being bad. It's just like up in Alaska when I, in my SSP time, when I encountered those fish people that are up there. The Inuits, I hate the Inuit people because the Inuit people were afraid of them and hunted them and ate them, and all they were doing was smiling. Of course, they look kind of ghoulish. But if you have an indoctrinated belief system in place, of course, something is going to seem demonic when it really isn't. If you're expecting or have an expectation of a particular look, you don't really know about elementals, elemental life forms, or the forest people, Sasquatch people. So the fish people are the ones I recorded in that recording called Fishmonger, where I was the part of that military unit that they wanted to capture the mer people in the area. And I also had the VR session where that Allen guy up in Jameson guy up in Alaska had me look at where I was a ghost of a person that got eaten by one of them, because they were trying to show me, document me how bad the people, those mer were. And I communicated with them saying, they were in Lake Iliandra. They told me not to come back. They didn't even trust me, even if I changed. They recognize the change. But this is about the forest people in this instance, and I feel it's a similar situation to that SSP time. So I'm going to close this session here. But Vorkak, I appreciate your communication. You're more than welcome to communicate with us at the house. If you want to do a World of Sasquatch episode, or if you want to do a Galactic Interstellar Council or the lifting episode or something like that with us, we'd be more than happy. As long as you have benevolent intentions with no conflicting agendas. Yes. I see him. He's out here. So, and him and a bunch of others. I will end this now. Promise. It is 2:46 p.m. 2:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. I do want to say, as we're driving along, though, there's areas of light and heavier in that forest area where the forest people were. It was there's less of them as you go along, and I don't see them anymore, but there's a ton of them in there. Been around, that descendant lineage had been around since the time of Yorktown, just like Fuma said in the Agents of Montauk video we did that is still up on the YouTube, mind you. Said he was only a child when Jamestown was in operation. This is just within spitting distance of Jamestown where we were then. Then I did that channeling, and then Seymour on GIC accused me and his brother of being more reckless at that point in our history. So, but this, if people go look that up, that's still accurate, and Fuma still supports that video on that channel. So, yeah, this is just a tour of field as we're going along, and this way you can see through the forest areas. You can see why there's forest people. So we're eventually going to get up to what spot? Well, about George Washington are we heading to?
It's where his field command was.
His field command was. So I'll more than likely do a ghost box session from there. The forest people are not too keen on a ghost box, I don't exactly blame them. So those things do get attachments, like you've heard me say, and too long a usage, they tend to get attachments. The original one I had in Nightdale had to get a Viking funeral. That video is still up on YouTube as well, of us doing that. And you'll see some of the nasties that came through that, but you do eventually have to part with them. Fire's usually the best, but you can renounce and revoke it at that moment of time. You can throw it out too. So it is, and get a new one. Expensive, but it's worth it in the end. It's 3:01 p.m. Oh, also 3 to 5 minutes of usage only. 3:01 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. Okay. We are at Washington's headquarters here. Right here. And the only questions I have is a galactic contribution to the formation of the United States. I know we talk about gardeners and we talk about supposed angelic contributions. I know the Moroni thing with Joseph Smith was Va'im people. That's an episode of After Show, JC After Show, that was done, where Moroni came through himself. Very fast-moving vibration. But there's a famous story at Valley Forge with Washington and the angelic being there. I'm asking more specific to that. Is this the same race as Moroni, Va'im people, V-I-I-M? Or is this someone else? Galactic, one of the hedge-betting races forging the United States, and also the gardeners going along with this. With the formation of, let's say, like a sacred timeline, like the Loki timeline, sacred timeline narrative. So, we'll go with that question, or line of questions.
S-Box. Scanning. FM.
And any words from General Washington himself, the legitimate, real, benevolent General Washington. What's some more of the real history? I heard my grandfather say in my head at one point, this is a rock, meaning geological, Mesozoic era past. Like, how do they know that? So he'd always make fun of it. I heard that in my head, meaning history, some history, what didn't happen or was false. Please clarify this. Any final words from our allies? Thank you. What I was saying was, when my grandfather said this to my mother ages ago, when he was alive, like they, some paleontologist would talk about some bones, and he'd say, yes, and this is a rock. I'm a paleontologist. Meaning, yeah, how the hell did I know? You know, sort of thing. So that's the image that popped into my head, so I know he was responsible for that. So, meaning hidden histories. So that's what I was referring to context-wise. So I will close this ghost box circle as of this moment in time. This has been interesting, folks, to say the least. It is 3:15. Hang on. It is 3:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. We passed a French cemetery a little bit ago. I'm not even bothering going to get out and do the ghost box thing. It is so unbelievably dense. There's a big white cross there, and there's tons of bodies stacked in a singular grave. It's like a mass grave. That's usually a no-no when you do stuff like that, like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. You don't know how dense that was at Arlington. You know, I still can't find the ghost box session I did at Arlington and GFK's, Eternal Flame there. Hopefully when I find that, I'll attach that, but I'll do that ghost box session. I'll review it and attach it, but if I can locate it, as that'll be part of this. But that was in 2016 or 17 before I time-stamped anything. But this was unbelievably heavy. Now we're coming out of it. We're in the artillery park now, as you can see here, French artillery park. It is not as dense here as it was in that cemetery. There's some places you just don't get out to do this kind of work. I threw a shungite nugget out the window, and that some people might think I'm a weenie, but no, I don't want crap following us home. So trust me, that is worth sometimes not doing something. The other paranormal investigator part of me, yeah, wants to do it, but then the intuitive side says no. So sometimes you just don't, and that energy needs to be cleared, and the earth needs to level it. But I did use some Eldscreef powder in the cemetery that we were at, the bigger one that you saw, outside of it, not in it, in the grassy area. But since I don't have any tower busters with, shungite and Eldscreef are the next best thing. So fire steps powder. So this I use for land clearing. No demon can step on it. So this place isn't going anywhere. It's not like we couldn't take a second sweep at this place at some point. So yeah. Or if anybody wants to do shungite offerings, if you're passing through the area, in this area, French cemetery with big white cross, or the battlefield, leave shungite powder. If you're going through. That can't hurt if a bunch of people are doing it. It's the opposite. It's a very good thing. So I'll leave this here. It is 3:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, 3:23 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. Okay, we're at the Jamestown settlement. We're not at the historic site. We can't get in there. It's too late in the day to do that. So we'll have to come back and do that another day. That is where we did the video that was at the Agents of Montauk video that we have up. That's where we did that. So I will do a brief ghost box thing here, maybe a minute or two. And I'll just say before I turn it on, we learned there about a specific agent of Montauk that carried around a silver box with an M on it, symbolizing Montauk, and that was the device I believe they used to anchor their frequency, I believe, kind of like in Trek where I said they had different frequencies for a specific time frame, and that's what caused aphasia if they went into another one. I believe that's a device that grounded them to wherever they were or where they were from, so it didn't cause some kind of warp in their genetics or something like that. A couple of insiders are famous, like Stu Sverdlow and them are famous for talking about that kind of aphasia or kind of genetic warp, and I believe that's what that was for, or a device that allowed them to go back to where they were from. Taking a frequency one way, one frequency one place, one frequency another, and then arcing back to the other one. I believe that's what that did. But the question is, his remains were found there. What? His name was Thomas West, I believe. How did he get trapped there? And I know he caused some of the reptilian mutilation and cannibalistic crap that happened there. That was found on that site. So, bringing the Kabbalistic garbage into that time frame and preventing John Smith from becoming president. I remember that. So, how did he get trapped there?
Xbox. Scanning. SM.
This week was in and then I'll on the back.
Somebody said too close. Who was that? Any final words from our allies?
Was that drink? Out of the window. It's good. One take.
Thank you. And that was the spot that Fuma famously said he was there as a kid. That shows you about 300 years old. So that's he was one that did the channel there. Both him and I refused to ever do a channel in a spot like that again. So that's why Seymour was basically slightly poking at him in the GIC we recently did, where he was talking about the multiverse and all this other stuff, but he was also poking at his brother for being a little reckless. So, and myself. So yeah, this is as close to that as you're gonna get this time around. We go there, I'll ask the questions again to see what I get, see if maybe we even get Thomas West himself, if we hadn't already. I know there's at least two here, two voices there, and some are telling me to knock it off. So, I will do so. I'm closing this circle for this Ghost Box session as of this moment in time. It is 4:39 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. Okay, apparently where I was aiming the camera before, I just kind of intuited that that was the direction of that archaeological site. And we can get in there for nothing since we have a park pass. So, next time we're out here, I'm definitely going to do another one of those in the site, in the basically the same area that Fuma, and I did the channel there all those years ago. I may combine that old show, or that old Sage recording that we did. I basically said Sage Lifting went to Jamestown. I may just combine that, and I'm thinking of combining this all into a single episode of the lifting, so to kind of rebrand or reaffirm it. So this will all be combined. So I will leave this here. It is 4:44. Here's the AI trying to chime in today. So it's 4:44 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. Okay, update. We on the way back, there was something in the car that I had to deal with. Something keeps saying that it hates me and that I've killed a bunch of them, or killed it. And it's like, yeah, I don't get it. So it could be past life related, could be not. Could be just something dicking around, could be not. You know, but I'll find out sooner or later. We're attaching this to a much larger show that we're doing. I'm notating that now, but obviously you see this when we've heard the show. So, and I'll include what we did at Williamsburg as well. So, I'm going to end this here. I just wanted to make a notation of that. It is 7:07 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you. Oh, an emotion that came to me when I was talking to Force people. There was sadness there, like something had happened there. You know, like I said, there were one of them was trying to. Porkak was telling me that they had been hunted. Of course, that'd make you sad. That's like those other Sasquatch that were surrounding the Patterson-Gimlin film. Yeah, it was pretty ugly. I'm going to put the World of Sasquatch back up as well. I got so many of that show that deserves to be back out there and deserves to be continued. So we're going to fire these shows back up, folks. There's certain ones you may not see anymore, like True You and some of the others. Some of the Legend of Zelda type stuff and Elder Scrolls, yes. Fallout, yes. All those things. But there's certain ones you won't see anymore. But World of Sasquatch is making a comeback. So, and we combined all the rest of the shows into essentially GIC. Like Lifting's Guide to Galactic History, Talk with the Galactics, Talk with the Elementals. Talk with Chris and Joanna, we're keeping that around. So we're going to resurrect that. So you're going to see these things again. I know it's been about a year or so since the last one was seen. There was one about the Will Smith slap nobody's seen, and there was another one about the Elon Musk takeover of Twitter that nobody's seen. So we're going to put those out there. So I'm going to say that here. Let's leave that here. It is 10:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Friday, August 25th, 2023. Thank you.
Okay. Hope you enjoyed that. As I said, at the date we're recording this on the 8/27/23, it is, I know there was a scattering of dates in there in those videos and timestamps, but you get the idea. I don't know all of what's in there. So as of this time. So doing the channeling, it's going to be slightly more meaningful because obviously these same people left messages in there, also answers to some of the questions in there. It'll be interesting doing a double blind here of see how things match up because, like I said, I have not reviewed it yet. So I will. Let's see. We can go into the galactic portion here, and I know in the recordings, at least I could surmise from hearing it on site. There obviously, Isaac, Lane, and Vessa, and my grandfather were in those, but there was a scattering of other voices in there. I may do a couple little annotations to this, depends on what I hear in those. So you'll see the now and then after I've looked at it, as if it's needed. So, okay, who exactly is going to speak? I know during a retrograde time frame, regardless of how you feel about retrograde time frames, they are rough channeling. So it's like you're in a riptide. So
it's a genuine
thing going on.
Energy wave that's being beamed down from something else. It doesn't matter which one it is, it does make it rougher.
It does make it rougher. It doesn't matter how you feel about it or if you think it's a psychosomatic response, whatever it is, or you think it's human co-creation, no matter what it is, it's still a rough time frame. So even Isaac pointed out at one point that it was AI induced to start with. So okay, which one of you, I know I gotta have somebody that's using an edifice, which one of you three wants to do this? Okay, we'll go with Vessa this time. All right. Man, you guys, I can hardly see you guys. So that's it's like looking at a fun house of mirrors. Things are like this, kind of shifting. Since I know what they look like, you can hone in on that. But it's like this, and it's fairly rough. And using something like a communication arc for a channel is actually very prudent. It's the Tower Buster formula with an arc with 2 pipes and with a similar image of what represents that particular being or beings. So it staples it into the ground or into the earth, and it makes it so that you have something that is like a post in the ground, or like what we've said to Bjorn off recording. We went out to Sandbridge, saw a wooden post in the water, and it wasn't moving. So with the water, it stays firm. No matter how bad the riptide gets, it stays. So it's like one of those wooden or metal posts out in the surf. So, Vessa? Yeah, I know. But let's say, dang it. Internet amount of cotton mouth today too. So, so you're through the crystal. Jesus. . Kind of rough. Yes, everyone. This is kind of rough because of what he says. Riptide is a very good term. These are things that are also creating false. How can I put it? Shift energies, false prophetical, self-fulfilling prophecies. Yes, there are earth shifts, but there are those that are trying to expedite those things to cover their ass as far as any prophecies they delivered other seers. Let's just round it off with that particular explanation. You can mold that around in your heads all you like with that. But with this particular set of information, what he was doing and what you guys were doing out in places like Williamsburg, Yorktown, and the like. He will notice on a couple of the things he managed to review prior to this, only a tiny amount of it, not anything that was done in the past day or two, that we were basically telling him that it was not as safe as he was seeing it. You have to bear in mind these are still lower density historic sites, not to denigrate what is going on or has gone on there, but there's a copious amount of information and histories, especially with Jamestown when you get to that section, especially with the Gardner family and that Thomas West that was spoken about, which yes, is a dangerous topic to be touching on, but it is good that it is being dusted off. This, especially with the Gardner family in particular, are the pruners of the sacred timeline, like in your Loki series, very accurately depicted, as he says. The what was going on in those sites, it may have seemed like what you guys were feeling as much calmer, which it was. It was in part because of what you guys did years ago. Like it's because but you did not see what that whole Harvester Alley thing, what he was talking about with the ghosts. You didn't jumping into the vehicles and everything. That was not necessarily a one-off, but it was in a quarterly cycle that those particular aliens and AI were harvesting off of a repeating loop, and the ghosts were trapped within that soul trap. They do it once every couple quarters or so. That was actually, you hit it right at the time, kind of like when you went to Japan and saw that temple open on the second day, you just happened to hit it. It's the same with that place. You just happened to see it because you were meant to see that particular harvesting event that was taking place there. It's a very cruel practice that is done. Think of it ritualistically for the Orions and AI. It's more of a ritual for them, more of a parade for them, let's just say. That's why you didn't see this. In Williamsburg, it seemed calmer and but also seemed different to himself because the energies had realigned more to where more of the physical structures and more of the energies could be seen for not necessarily for what they are, but things that may have been hidden from both of your eyes then. Even buildings, even structures, even people were hidden from your eyes. There are interruptions. But this particular trip you guys took also to Yorktown, going through that particular tour, yes, you did run into the forest people there, who are not necessarily apprehensive to talk. They're being cautious, and I would not advise taking the ghost box back to those areas again. The reason Fuma was the one that came through at Jamestown that time when you guys originally went is because his own brethren were also in that immediate area. You can use that again, like say in Jamestown, of course, it's within a limited fashion, like you do, 3 to 5 minutes. That's all I would ever recommend. But it was being done repeatedly within the same area. There areas there in Williamsburg and in Yorktown. So this is why there was caution there, and you will hear some of the cautionary yelling, let's say, on the ghost box. Even his own grandfather was on there. Yes, he was joking around, but he was also frustrated as holy hell. So as we were. But the energies, yes, are calmer at the time you are going and doing things. This shifts and changes, but no, once every couple quarters, the Orions tend to pass through like a plague or a storm. They can't do it as much now, but they do try to go to some of their old haunts, no pun intended, to look for repeated layers of history and feed and loosh off of those things. And this, like I said, what you call Harvester Alley is essentially a very apt term. It still goes on to a certain extent. They hit these old intersection points. There happens to be an intersection point within that triangle that you've stated, Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown. There's a reason there's a triangle there. There's a reason those battles took place the way they did, to create a triangle, an apex. It's not just a lane like an alley. It's a three-pronged zone. And Roanoke, you can say, is a creation of another one of those zones. You can touch on that when the time comes. And I would advise doing this in nuggets or in little morsels or bites. But I can go into questions if you like.
So one of the things, again, Chris hasn't gone through the ghost box, but one of the interests of us going there was basically to try and see all of the thoughts more revolving around intuition, maybe divine guidance, or, again, George Washington has said, that he felt something, showed up, spoke to him, those types of
like
things.
at Valley Forge and all that, yes.
So, you have all of those things that are kind of going on that are mentioned in history. It's not like we're saying something that isn't true, but we are curious because, again, especially in relationship to Jamestown. And again, when we talk about Jamestown, talk about the structuring, like you said, the Gardner family or whatever. What was actually, going on in the Civil War? How was that being molded and manipulated, if it was, in a benevolent way, in a not so benevolent way, in a controlling way, in a modeling way? From your perspective, from your historical, let's say, records of the area, I guess is what I would want to say. And from your perspective, what did you guys see actually happening?
I personally was not there, but I understand the records pretty all right. The Gardner family was heavily involved in your Civil War. That and your Rothschilds, like what happened in your Napoleonic conflict where they sold arms to both sides. It was heavily charged on both sides. Your Abraham Lincoln is not exempt from this. People like to think that he was everywhere from a great emancipator to even a monster vampire hunter. And you're not completely wrong on both accounts, but that is the face of what was also being seen. Like in your fictional story, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, there are the actual facts to some of the creatures of the night, basically, of being hunted as well during that time frame. Hence also why you saw the forest people talking about the militias looking for them. But that was Revolutionary War time frame, like with Jamestown and Yorktown time frame. Think of that during the Civil War. Those things did go on. There were these response teams, as he likes to say, but not aimed at the things you would hope. They had more of a Christian base to them, or like a secret society order type of witchery type thing, but mixed with Christianity, like the Inquisition. You don't really want to know all of that. But the during the Civil War, it was more of a hedge betting sort of thing, very much like in your ancient times. During the times of the Peloponnesian Wars and further back when the Daelian League, as him and Ryan discussed, whereas the aliens were hedge betting on whose army would last. Greece would stay divided? No, they didn't stay divided. They united into a league, and they aimed their resources at the Persians. And they were also, other groups were trying to hedge bet the Persians as well as being the army, just like what happened with the Nazis and the aliens. They were trying to see who would dominate. And that still goes on, unfortunately, to this day, but it was like that in that area. Whose ideals would win out, whose flag would be flying, and it really didn't make a whole hell of a lot of difference. Who would have won that? Things in the now would have played out relatively the same. So they were trying to see who would reap the biggest rewards in the hedge betting, who would have the greatest standing with, say, the reptilian agenda, Orion agenda, and various hedge bettors. There were other little factions in there that were playing chess too at the same time, just like you saw in your Star Trek Enterprise, where the temporal Cold War, where the different factions were just kind of competing with each other. It's the same thing with your Cabal and alien groups. It's the same identical dynamic. What can we alter? What can we change? Like at your Jamestown, with your Thomas West, for instance. He was a Montauk agent who was on behest of the Gardners that would go back and alter things. Civil War was the same way. You had the Gardner family that was anchored on both sides trying to manicure how they felt the United States should look. They were there at Orville Wilbur Wright's flight to try to match certain innovations that would be timed, very much like your Vulcans holding back Archer's father in the Enterprise show. Some of these races will hold people back to time them where they think they should present that particular innovation or about of evolution. That's why your 100 years disclosure exists the way that it does. It's timed that way. Where anybody has some free thought about something, they're curved like, no, it's too early for that. That's my opinion. Even though some things do have to play out slow, there are other things that do not. So this is where Isaac and I differ on some of this, but I do, I believe a little like him, where some rungs on the ladder can be skipped. But with your Civil War, think about a large tridimensional chessboard, and each layer of that tridimensional chessboard, like on your Star Trek with the multi-layered one, each one of these is a faction that has a hedge bet. Think of each one of these hedge bets having a human meat puppet component. Think of each one of those meat puppets as having an army or a vested interest. The church was one of those. Your government is one of those. Abraham Lincoln was one of those. His supporters were one of those. Jefferson Davis was one of those. His supporters were one of those. And each one of those in between, even though these were families divided, split right down the middle, who would win that hedge bet? It was just one big prick-waving dick fight, as like George Carlin liked to say. It's also like the whole Job story. God and Satan making a bet on how much punishment Job could take. That was a hedge bet in its finest. Most loyal servant of God, let's see how much we can take from it. This is exactly what happened. Let's see which army is the greatest of all time, that whole goat thing. Who's the greatest of all time? Who is the strongest, the most fit, that could then benefit the manicuring of this timeline? The Gardners calculated all of this, who they supported, who they didn't support, who they would bet against, who they would bet in favor of. The rolling of the dice, the stock market, however you want to see it, how the story plays out, even your Dungeons and Dragons, what creative tale can we weave? And I'm not trying to integrate them into it. That's actually a very good medium of creativity. I'm just saying this is how they also view this over here. How can we manicure these timelines like your Kang the Conqueror type character? That's who they base this off of. One timeline to control, one ring to rule them all. How can we manicure the multiverse in our favor? This particular thing, though, the Civil War specifically, the slavery issue was only one aspect of this. Yes, was it a big one? Yes, they're making it a bigger deal than it actually is in retrospect of all these other things. The head factions, or the faction of the South at that time, was that whole golden circle, golden serpent type of group. It was a contending, this is very important, contending group with the normal Cabal. It was headed by a different Orion faction than the other, and these two butted heads also through history. They wanted to basically wave their wieners at one another. And in this particular way, you can find no finer group no finer duo than your Enki and your Enlil. This was orchestrated by the two brothers. Enki is not exempt from this in any way, shape, or form. He is just as bad as his brother. He just applies it differently. One applies it more in a religious sense, the other applies it more in a financial one. That's why Enki was given Africa and Enlil was given everything else by Anu, which was Odin. This is why you have frustrations with him, because he implemented some of these things. However, he's not the boogeyman he once was. This I can say is in his favor. But another aspect to this is your Civil War itself. All those that died from this. What was the sacrifice? That was the big sacrifice that these aliens wanted. All the loose energies, hence your harvester alley or triangle. I'm not coining a term that people can say this is harvester triangle or not. I'm just saying that that's an apt term to describe this, where those zones were created for this. Geographical intersection locations that one could power a ship on, one could power a device on, or one could do magical rituals upon it. All of the above was taking place. They always peg Abraham Lincoln as knowing all these esoteric secrets, and therefore that's why he was killed. Yes and no. Both sides knew this, but they were both the meat puppets. Him and Jefferson Davis were both the meat puppets of these other fanatical orders. The North was more into the, I want to say, that was more Enki's territory. They've mixed and blurred lines since then. There really is no Mason-Dixon line, and the other one was Enlil, more into the satanic ritualism. And then sometimes they would flip and go, hey, let's try this again, but on opposite ends. Sound familiar with your current level of politics, where they flip the colors red and blue? This time it was blue and gray. And with this particular topic, I can go no further with that portion of it. I know you had other aspects to the question itself, but his brain is not holding all of them. What were the other aspects?
It's only that I find it interesting that you jumped to the Civil War. Now, I will agree that probably around here there isn't necessarily something like these other places that are, boom, Civil War oriented, although a lot of fighting and interesting things happen. But I just want to
also, they punished their meat puppets after they were done with them too, like what happened to Jefferson Davis. That's what you guys found out in Mississippi as well.
Right. And so which happens a lot, and it's happening now too, with people will just be thrown under the bus because that's who there is no loyalty over there, no matter what people
like
think
your
they're
Epstein's,
doing.
they were thrown under the bus. That's what happened to him. Yes.
Right. And so I find it interesting because if I heard you correctly, the Revolutionary War again was, it seemed to be again infighting to establish a place where
establish a foundation,
right?
And the beings that were establishing the foundation, think of your Washington with that angel, and even your Joseph Smith with the Moroni figure, same group as he likes to say, but also different aspects of implementing some of these different foundational beliefs, foundational how will this city look, how will this nation look, type of thing.
But again, letting that kind of dice roll to see are they going to be able to separate or not, doesn't, although there was interference prior to that in Jamestown to try to set the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And then here you have this where basically people are having a little bit stand back to see how it plays out. If I heard you correctly, they were interfering, but really to see could it or could it not be done.
Yes.
And then after the fact, through the next 100 years or plus, really people digging in their heels and trying to establish what this would look like over here through, if I'm hearing you correctly, I think that's what you're saying. So again, as far as that side of the story, the unknown side of the story, it was after the establishment of, and then you have the war, the Revolutionary War itself. But then you really have, after that, the next 100+ years, of the infighting that was going on to really secure who was running what over here.
Yes, think about like if you had two groups that supported different gods in the past, same difference. Oh, what would that look like? And you see this in your Middle East quite a bit. What meat puppet prophet, let's just say, said what about what deity? And they have different interpretations, like your Sunni and Shiite. One believes Muhammad, the other one believes Ali, for instance, of who was the prophet thereof, or the voice of God. This happens quite a bit. This this particular dynamic, like say if you had an emblem for one god, emblem for another. You saw this in your Black Panther movie, where one supported Hanuman and the other one supported their cat god. So, and they were butting heads at first, but then they agreed to disagree to fight a common enemy. It's the same kind of dynamic where one group had their own army and another group had their own army, and they hedge betted on who would defeat whom and who would become dominant. What do they get out of this? In the hedge bets, they gain resources. They gain mining rights. They gain energetic resources. They gain territories. They play games in resources, territories, mining rights, and prestige. And this is a big ego thing, very much like in your Thor Love and Thunder at the beginning, when Christian Bale's character enters the sanctuary and is expecting a reward for reaching that place. And the one god goes, "Oh, no, you must be one of mine. Oh, no, there's going to be no reward. We've had to kind of hedge our bets, and we had to go after this god killer, the person." That's how they act. This is exactly how they act. The hedge betting still goes on to this day, and Isaac was correct about the gift from the stars. He was correct about certain channelers out there that are delivering particular messages. You guys are very smart to have tighter circle, deeper roots. Very, very smart doing this, because some of the groups, even the groups on earlier GICs, for instance, were hedging those bets as to who would believe what, who would deliver what message. You don't know how vast this is at the moment. They're a big group of prick-waving assholes that are actually experimenting on what group will believe them and how far, until they crash and burn them. This is also why you're not getting as much attention as you would like. For one, it's a safety thing in some instances, but you will get further along. Two, you don't allow yourselves to be hedge betted, and you know what's going on. Those that know that is going on, they don't have any interest in that. They want ignorance. They want somebody who's all about the love and light and just spreading the message willy-nilly and not questioning them. They don't want people questioning them. This isn't just an Orion thing. This is, how can I put it? You ran into this group at one point, a whole united group of shitheads. They called themselves the Council. These guys, you ran into them while they stood above you going, "Oh, this one knows this and this one knows that. Let's fuck with them a little bit longer and see how long they can take it till they break." That crap. This is some of the crap you're up against, along with their human meat puppet Kabbalist factions. Even the Martian Germans fall into that category. With the Orions are not the only threat. They just happen to be the devil that you know. There are many little devil lords out there, let's just say, that you do not know. And some groups, like you see it even in your Star Trek, you see it in your Star Wars universes, you see it in your Marvel Cinematic Universe, where sometimes they're in a bar standing around all around a gambling table, like your Dabo playing people on Deep Space Nine and stuff like that. They're all standing around, or they're standing around playing chess, like in your Jason the Argonauts movie, where they were all playing chess over a large world map. And the famous quote was, the people are best served by those, the gods are best served by those who want their help least. Very noble of a statement. But some of these groups wouldn't think that way. But that is a truthful statement. Humanity would be in a much better standing if they could see these beings as equals, but also see when they're being shafted as well.
Well, thank you. I want to, this is going to sound like it's going off the curve a little bit, because I want to reiterate something that we've really seen lately. It has to do with, again, these energies, these things that are streaming in that are causing people a lot of emotional distress, and they don't realize that it's from what's being sent their way. Emotional distress, increase in anxieties, increase in problems and stuff like that, where, you know, you're wondering yourself how mentally ill you really are, things like that, that are going on and making life hard. I do want to reiterate again, we actually drove in Yorktown. It's a driving tour where you get to drive to see where everything was, read some plaques. I will say some areas, again, for obviously for fighting or whatever, are going to be open field areas, but other areas are very densely packed woods. And in fact, where Chris actually had a very short communication with some of the forest people that were there, we were in densely forested areas. And the reason why I want to bring that up is that it did filter out all of the crap. So there's two places that we have noticed. I say this because I think some of this anxiety, some of this problems that are going on are keeping people in their homes and, you know, away, wanting to be away and shut away from people or whatever. But I need to bring up that densely packed forested areas, if you will go into, you will stop hearing some of this and you can recharge that way, as well as you have to be somewhat close, but the ocean as well. If you get close enough, you will not hear any of it anymore. It does block it. And so I can't stress enough that people need to find places like this, that if you know you're highly sensitive to some of this, where you can go to reground and reconnect and do everything, because I think some of these energies want to drive you from doing that. They want you to crawl up in your bed and put the pillow over and wait for it to stop, but it's not stopping. So where do you go to rejuvenate? I just wanted to bring that up. I know it's a little off topic, but it was one of these moments where Chris and I really got to sit back and say, wow, we've said it before, but now under even, I think, more intensity that was going on even before, to be able to revalidate that there are areas where nature itself it protects you from some of these things, to be able to go in and it will rejuvenate you.
Yes, and I will hand this conversation over into a moment to a forest person who wishes to enter the conversation. But yes, Elena and I do go into nature quite often for this reason. You know, even though we do jobs just like yourselves, we have work just like yourselves, we have a home just like yourselves. We don't necessarily pay for the home, but there are other resources you still have to use currency on. The homes aren't exactly one of them, believe it or not. The land, yes. Home, no. But with that, we do go into nature quite often, even though we go into city settings and we like the street vibe just like everybody else. But we like gatherings with people, and so there are nature settings that we also prefer, even though we're in a desert setting, very much like your state of Nevada or Arizona. We do like the ocean settings as well, and forest settings as well. And there are also nymphs, fairies, and forest people that like this in great abundance, and that is a good way to knock or kick this voice in the nuts, as he likes to say, where you get close enough to the water. When it's really bad, yes, definitely ocean, trees, densely packed trees, like what you found. This is why the forest people could walk quite freely in there. And I will let him speak now. His name is Vorkak, and he wishes to address this particular issue. The forest people are quite insistent on a voice. So give me a moment. Thank you all. Yes, this is Vorkak. You encountered me out in the Yorktown area. You visually did see me. he thought it was you happened to see me. No, we wanted to become visible. It's safer a little now than it was at that time, believe it or not. I myself, like your Fuma that I saw in his mind, who you had been speaking to, this is why we were able to warm up to you since you have been a friend to the forest people for a long time. I am not as old as Fuma, but I had a father that was also there who is still around. He is roughly 600 years old. I'm more of 100 and say 70-ish, I'll just say. I was more around in the Old West time frame, as you would put it. I saw some of the things in the 1800s, but my father saw more. I saw back into the Viking conquest periods and the things of that nature, and even a post-witch trial type of environment. This, though, in the wooded area, he was around at the time where there were groups that would hunt my kind. They were Christian-based, very much like in your Outlander series, like he said, with the regulator group that was different from what was played out in the timeline. That was actually an accurate thing to the temporal, well, you'd say temporal Cold War in Star Trek terms with temporal war, whereas different factions would be implemented like meat puppets to someone that would go back in time as well. Very much like your Thomas West was a Montauk agent that went back to change time in history, as Fuma would say. He's roughly 300 years old. He was a child at that time. I was not conceived until later, but this particular group would go look for my kind in particular because they defied the status quo of what the religious doctrine said should be there. Very much like how some of your people do that now, but in different belief systems. Oh, this defies this. This shouldn't exist. Wrong. You just have a wrong template you're working off of. Just like him and his ghost box. I will use this as a rough example. This is why we were asking that he don't bring that into our sanctuary place, because very much like your Cascades and the one he calls Chuck and them live up in there, they would not allow that in there because it's an AI component that exists within. It is the same thing. The trees cut this off or absorb the blow, as it were, very much like how if plants die, suddenly they block demons and AI and waves, and even some of your dew weapons at time can be blocked by certain trees. Not all types, but some densely packed ones can, very much like in your Doctor Who with the solar flare. All those trees mysteriously grew and blocked a solar flare. The Earth was using it as an immune system, and the Doctor said that's where certain fairy myths came from. That's in a later season, where all the trees mysteriously grew, something like of that nature. But this particular group existed around the time of your Revolutionary War. They operated separately and still continue to do so. They have a variant of their order now that they're based in they just call them a meat puppet faction 2700 and whatever the hell. But that's a joke. But in this, they existed separate, very much like your Adolf Hitler had his paranormal division, his Vril, all of those things. They had a priest that would commune, and he did not know what he was communing with. He thought he was communing with the Almighty, and would then advise where some of our people were, because the ones they were looking for were our mortal enemy. Reptilians, Orions, and other factions that did not want to see us live in peace, or did not want to see us align with humans in any way, shape, or form like in the past. This is why the Native Americans were gone after, because they were descendants of Lemurian factions and Mayan factions, and others that were around during those times of Mu and Lemuria and Atlantis, and even further back, and had ties to the earth. Some still do, some have lost this. You know the routine there. But this was different. These factions did have the ability to harm us. Their muskets had certain ammunition that could pierce us. Same thing with the dogmen. some of these church factions did look into what they thought were demons, wolves, ghouls, and creatures of the night, very much like your Van Helsing in the Van Helsing movie with your Hugh Jackman was with that church organization. It was very similar to this. And they still exist. This is why he likes to say there should be a response team for the proper things. And yes, but there is one that is more church going. That's why you see some of those vampire hunting kids and crap like that were out. They couldn't tell the difference between genuine evil and what other creatures of the night out, or like your Order of the Midnight Sun and your Marvel Cinematic Universe and comics, things of that nature. They like Werewolf by Night and all that kind of stuff, and Vampire Dracula, all that stuff. And even so much in your recent days with your Jaws movie, with your sharks being hunted thereafter. It was a very similar effect. When a scary story has been told, people tend to not tell the difference. They just want peace from it. They don't care what it is or where it's from. And this is what sparked some of the Mer conflicts, because humans' fear drove them overboard. And yes, there were Orions that caused this to cause war with some of their greatest enemies in the sea. This is how things like this happen. These things are currently going on. So you visit our sanctuaries. You are allowed to do so and speak to us on a regular basis, but we ask that you not use the equipment like that again, because of the fact that it could allow in a site that we do not want. Jamestown, yes, that's a big open area, and there are temporal cursive fractures there that could be of use to you. In that way, you'd be able to hear other time frames and such with that. Not a good channeling site. Our site that you were in the wooded area, I would recommend there. Yes, you could, like the Cascades. It's more of a temple space. It will work for you in that respect if you want to still channel, but we would advise that it would only be of our clan, not to be greedy to others that are of like mind, but there could be other ilk or like ilk that you've dealt in the past that could hijack that. So we would have to take better precautions if you're wishing to do that. Like what you said happened on your Thumb Butte with the Lyran clans. I know you are cautious in that respect, and we respect that. So in this, we are happy to take questions.
So from your perspective, I guess it would be stories from your father or a history, again, going back to that. We'll just stick with Yorktown because that's more close to where I think you guys are. What was the perspective from the stories you hear from your father about that period of time?
Yes, his name is Cleggan. He is still alive. He said he's more apprehensive about doing some of the channelings. He's slightly more cautious, but his perspective from that time was he led or helped lead some of our people into some of these sanctuaries, whereas some of your revolutionary groups then spotted some of us. And because of their Christian faith, and we're not dumping on any religious belief or anything that gives people comfort, but in this instance, it became very much like a plague, whereas they saw anything that wasn't of themselves demonic. He basically tells us, and the stories he tells us are about some of these groups, but not how all humans that believe the same are bad. All humans are not bad, but they're not ready for what is and what truths lie out there. Because if you were to even speak this, if we were to come out in the open and tell our perspective other than in this format, we would come out in the open. You would still have paramilitary groups that would try to claim the area, very much like what happened to your Native Americans. It would be the same. Relocation. Oh, you're confined to here. We will claim this area now. This is federal land, that kind of thing. This is also another reason we don't come out, except on very rare occasions where you can see you saw us. So like the one you compared to in Japan, that one also took great risk doing the same. And your Fuma and Seymour took great risk doing the same, more so than you know. The perspective he had was at the time of the Battle of Yorktown. at that time where we knew some of the wars were ending. And the wars started because of some of these hedge betting races that we wanted to stay out of that crowd or that game. But there were beings out there that knew that we wanted to stay out of this. And they added us into, oh, we'll add them in no different position than the human. Maybe know they're being controlled or hunted. We'll add them in there because they don't want to play our game. So let's turn them into a targeted pariah, or as you would say, targeted individual group, or targeted group or demographic, or trying to skew timelines, the usual crap. So we became victim to this. But we also did not allow any humans with weapons to enter that territory. We understood perfectly why they were the way they were. This did not sway what needed to be done. We didn't kill anyone unless they harmed one of us. And this did happen back then, where people disappeared unexpectedly. You can even look in the historical record, things like that happened. Sometimes they were put down as casualties because their bodies were found. But these were some of those particular us hunting groups, you see. And the priests at the time were never seen as that. They would be of local parishes, but they would have like a back room or an area where they would do divination, stuff like that. Stuff that the church would frown upon, but at the same time, it was used to do what they thought God's work really truly was. My father at the time did encounter some of these things, some of these reptilians that wandered into our space, some of these humans that wandered into our space. He was regretful because of people that were caught in the middle, but he was not regretful of defending our colony. Hence also why a lot of groups have some of the sentinels that stand guard in forest areas. We've done that for centuries. The local town of the Yorktown area there, and some of those houses that you've seen that were from the period, it looks very similar. Of course, you have modern day stuff that's there and newer homes that are there that made to look like the old ones. But it was a small group of, I want to say missionaries, kind of like your Puritans, but a little bit later in time, not quite as fierce as your Puritans were during the witch burnings, of which my father and grandfather witnessed some of that. My grandfather especially. He was from the Atlantean Lemurian time frame, like your Sufoth. Well, he rarely speaks outside of our circles. But when this was spotted, they knew what to look for because they saw that certain things were communicating with the people there, to be afraid of their surroundings. At the time of the Battle of Yorktown, the Washington men were too busy trying to defeat the British. They were too enamored to notice us. This is why they enlisted this other witchery type group to look for us, because they couldn't. They were too preoccupied. And this group did nothing but, very much like the group that looked for historical artifacts, the monuments men, that's all they did in your World War II, or ones that looked for occult or historical artifacts on your Nazi side, and looked for historical paintings and such like that to steal. It was very similar, where that's all they did. And it was they were disguised as either faction, either British or colonial or colonist. And they would go out looking for these particular types of things, very much like in your fourth or third Pirates movie, where they were looking for, it was the fourth one where they were looking for the Fountain of Youth, where they had that Christian Spaniard that wanted to do nothing but destroy the Fountain of Youth because it was against Jesus, things of that nature. And trying to garden a timeline into more of a Christian base. This is why you hear things about the United States being founded on Christianity. This group is responsible for some of that. And it is not necessarily true, mind you. If they were really in the peaceful, say, love conquers all type mindset, they wouldn't be acting this way. They would be more forgiving, let's just say, and that's only half a joke. But at the time of Yorktown, there were specific parishes and specific areas. You passed through or passed near a couple of these. When you passed by our forest area, you also passed near that little settlement. Within that settlement is where some of this divination took place. He saw this when he went to Nebraska to the Waco church. Him and his friend Diana called it the Nazi church. Very apt, because some of those things were going on where satanic rituals were happening in the Undercroft. Or I will not say the name of the university that he attended or was within his SSP time. A very similar type thing was going on in the basements or the Undercrofts. It very, very similar there. You passed over several little connected undercrofts that were there. Many people think it's a sewer, which, yes, you could honestly call it a sewer where a lot of shit passed through there. But aside from that, it was very ritualistic and still is in some areas. A lot of cliques, a lot of groups that still get together in the undercrofts and the underbellies of your eastern seaboard. The Gardeners being a major proponent in this. This is why you were warned when you were in Arizona that there were several things out here. They will leave you alone. But even if you talk about them, they're not really one for coming out of the closet. But in this, they can be talked about because what's being talked about is ancient history. So I can take further questions.
Well, the one other thing I think that I want to bring up that I'm sure it must bother you is how dense a particular spot was. There was a spot, again, the French helped out during this time and had their own troops there. And whereas we visited a grave site, where there were tons of soldiers and even graves of unknowns, that you'll see that you will have seen that on part of what Chris recorded for individual graves or grave markers. What the French seemed to do is have like an area that was like a mass grave area, and in the center had a big white cross. And comparatively, even to the other spot where there was a large cemetery, I could not get over how dense that one spot was. We were actually kind of a little beside ourselves because we didn't have with us things to put around it to try and break up some of those dense energies. But what in the world is that all about?
Yes, that particular spot was, you would say, god awful, no pun intended. This was a site of what I just spoke about the dark divinations that took place at that time. It was covered in or filled in with a cemetery in the later years. Its earlier proponents, though, were one of these sites. There were more buildings on some of these sites that you don't see anymore. And this was one of those particular meeting sites or divination sites. And sometimes some of these groups would go into already established graveyards and cemeteries and do this. Some of those cemeteries and graveyards came later. It's just that those particular sites were used because they were away from prying eyes, or they were trying to look for our people or Fae or any of some of the other groups that they have. They have detailed rosters still and glossaries. Your Vatican has much greater because of some of the information they've gathered, and other witchery groups and paranormal-based groups and corporations have some of these detailed glossaries, as you guys like to have talked about. And if anybody comes across certain things for real, sometimes the information is confiscated. They don't do it near as much anymore. They do, but they don't. They have, of course, your UFO cleanup groups and all this stuff. We've witnessed some of that on the East Coast as well. Even in recent days, this has happened. It's been shoved under the rug as something normal. But in that time around, that bigger one that you found, that was the lesser, where you found that white cross. The reason there is such a gigantic cross there is because that was a marker point of that order's divination. Whereas it was here, this is our flag, our sword. We meet here. Do not cross this boundary. And one could say that can be a good idea if you are fixing something. You cannot pass, kind of like Gandalf and the big Balrog demon kind of thing. In this instance, they were the Balrog demon. So in this instance, you were picking up one of the old divination sites.
Well, obviously then makes a lot of sense, because just the single burial place didn't quite make sense of how horrible it was.
Yeah, that was the cover up as to what took place there. They figured, okay, we'll just put a cemetery there, sort of
Right.
thing.
Well, that's very, very interesting. I think Chris will probably be pondering how to help those energies, what to do.
Caution is needed in a place such as that. It would be appreciated if the energies were leveled, but it is not one to linger in, because there were dark magics, and it's a very minor intersection point. You would not necessarily see this with any divining rods completely. It was this weird apex that was generated there. If you are to go there, a multitude of things would have to be necessary to even begin to level it, but anything would be appreciated.
And I agree with you. That was the one thing that was also amazing. As dense as that spot was, it really was a spot, as you're saying.
Dark magic sacrifices a whole bit.
Yeah, and again, it didn't permeate out now. Now it truly just was this horrific spot. And I think, again, it goes to show to things that we've said before, that land can be corrupted, spots can be, corrupted and from some of these things. And obviously this is one of those places. So I appreciate you speaking on that. Well, I think, again, I'm just going to turn it over to you for any last words. I know we're trying to keep these things to a reasonable conversation. We can always add on to them. So anything that, and I really appreciate you being here. This was a surprise. Didn't expect this at all. And you are right. Chris and I are extremely cautious because of events that have occurred to even have conversations, knowingly have conversations with people, because we are concerned for your safety and your family's safety. We really are. We've experienced some very heartbreaking things, and we just want to acknowledge that our goal would be to not bring attention to your people.
That is appreciated by our group, and we send love and blessings back as well. There is still war going on in these areas. There is still much to be cautious about. What is the term you humans use? Jumping from the frying pan into the fire. Yes, you guys have experienced this already, but there is not without hope in this area. Yes, we can assist where we can, but not without risk. We can help in these areas. We do ask that if people come looking for our people in these areas, that you do so without electronic equipment. Yes, would we appear on a camera at some point of photo? Yeah, maybe. We are more cautious than some of the ones you have encountered in the past. We have suffered tragedy like your people have. This is a good way of reforging a very old brotherhood and alliance. We see this. Some of our people may have a more apprehensive stance against humans, given the fact that some have fallen for so much trickery. You have run into them as well. But we still have our eldership intact. We also have youngins, let's just say, that you guys have also run across. He spotted the one that even had a cigarette in his mouth around here. Yes, that does happen. They steal your stuff and they do the same. Our people and yours are very, very similar. We have a similar lineage. So with that said, tread cautiously into some of these historic sites. Though there are aged locations, there's also aged technologies in place that it's layer upon layer. Thousands and thousands of years of earth shifts, movements, pole shifts, and ley line shifts have also created different PowerPoints, different culminations of magic, different traps, different booby traps, different entities that are in different places, including one that you guys thought you made up called the Slender Man, I might add. The people thought the video game made this up. No. People were picking up on something that was in the area that wasn't just a culmination of energies like a curse. It was an actual dimensional entity type that was depicted in your Slender Man games that is actually prevalent in and around certain apex or culmination or intersection points. You call them ley lines and portals and vortexes. It's a cautionary tale with that lot. We avoid them like the plague. There's not many, but we do avoid them. They can and will. They're a type of anti-nature, like elemental-ish type form that can curse. They're a walking curse embodiment, sort of. They don't speak. They just touch, and anything they touch turns to crap. So let's just put it that way: walking turds, if you will. So, and they probably don't even know we're even saying this. So, in this, I will end this here, but we are happy to continue to communicate. We've also noticed you've also ushered in others of our people in this area and the place you originally were in Arizona. So we appreciate this and the attention, but again, within our territories, limit the use of electronic devices for the reasons I previously stated. We will let you know if we wish you to use it again. So I thank you all. Yeah, that was interesting. I encountered Vorkak out there on, you'll hear in the videos where I encountered him out there. They were very cautious about the ghost box. I heard them messing around with it, but I heard them mostly in my head while I was out there. They were mind speaking. So I don't know how much of that translated to the device, but I would honor them if you are part of a Sasquatch, I don't want to say hunting group, but a Sasquatch research group, and you're going into some of these nearby woods. I know you want to use electronic equipment. Of course you are for your research, but they're basically saying limit the use of, and if you're in the Yorktown area, don't use it at all. You can report on it, or if you're a channeler, go in there and speak to them, or a telepath or mind speak with them. But they are asking that you limit the use of electronic equipment. At this moment in time, that may change at some point. But as we've said before, there's these groups that are hunting them currently. And we may, I was thinking of resurrecting the World of Sasquatch, little franchise that we had going for our subscriptions. So for this reason, to be able to just focus on them at some in some intervals. So I don't know if you have anything else to add before I do the affirmation.
Interesting conversation, and it always goes in an interesting direction, I think. So I hope everybody really enjoyed it.
So the affirmation blessing then?
Sure.
Yeah.
Blessings to all that are out there that are listening to us now and in the future. We send energies to you that are healing and energies to you that are for your highest good, whatever that means, that you can learn and grow and be fulfilled in your life as you wanted to when you came in. So blessings, and we hope you enjoyed this conversation.
Yes, and thank you everybody for watching this. And now the circle is closed within true benevolence only, with no conflicting agendas. This was a thoroughly great show and great idea to do. You'll more than likely see this show sometime in October. So thank you everybody. Bye bye now.